Mankind is more disposed to evil than to good. Machiavelli's words are not an insult, they are a warning. The battlefield you must face is not out there in the world of armies and empires. The true battlefield begins the moment you wake and catch your own reflection. That glass is not just showing you a face, it is showing you an adversary. A rival who knows every secret, every weakness, every cowardly retreat you've ever taken. When you look into the mirror, you are staring directly at your greatest enemy and your greatest weapon. You've been told your battles are against society, against competitors, against those who mock you. But the first and fiercest war is against yourself. The shadow inside you, the reservoir of instincts, suppressed impulses, and untamed hungers, sits in silence, waiting. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, the part of you that hides what you refuse to face. It is not your weakness alone, it is also your dormant power. But here is the danger. If you leave it unchallenged, it grows stronger in the dark. The man who cannot face his own shadow will fall, not by the hands of enemies, but by his own betrayal. History is littered with leaders who conquered kingdoms yet could not conquer themselves. Alexander the Great subdued nations but lost his empire to excess and intoxication. Roman emperors rose on discipline but collapsed into madness when their shadows devoured them. These men were not defeated by assassins, they were defeated by the enemy in the mirror. And so it is with you. Your shadow whispers every morning. It whispers to delay, to indulge, to give in. It tells you to check your phone before your purpose. It tells you to hide from responsibility and to wait until tomorrow. That is the ambush. That is the first strike. If you do not fight back at dawn, you are already conquered before the day begins. Do not mistake this war as optional. If you ignore your shadow, it will enslave you with invisible chains, addiction, self-sabotage, weakness. But if you confront it, if you seize it by the throat and command it, your shadow transforms. It becomes your general, your war horse, your weapon. The man who masters his shadow becomes untouchable, because no external enemy can wound him deeper than he has already endured. The mirror is not glass. It is a battlefield, and the figure you see inside it is not your reflection, it is your rival. Step forward and claim victory, or step back and let him rule you. Conquer yourself, or be conquered forever. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Machiavelli understood that a crown on the head means nothing if the mind beneath it is weak. Your mind is your throne, and whether you like it or not, you are seated upon it. You cannot abdicate. You cannot run. The throne is yours until death, but the question is, are you king or are you hostage? Every thought that enters your head is a courtier vying for influence. Some bow with loyalty, reminding you of discipline, duty, and vision. Others are traitors, whispering indulgence, laziness, fear. If you do not govern them with absolute authority, the shadow inside you will rise as a usurper. Without structure, the throne is seized, and the kingdom of your mind collapses into chaos. Discipline is the crown that stabilizes your reign. Alexander ruled half the world by the age of 30, but when his discipline faltered, so did his empire. He conquered cities, but failed to conquer himself, drowning in wine and impulse. That is the cost of a crown without control. It slips, and the shadow laughs as it devours the king. Your shadow is not obvious. It doesn't storm the gates with banners and armies. It works like poison, drop by drop. In the modern world, this poison sounds like a voice in your head, telling you, not today, maybe tomorrow. You deserve to rest. One more distraction won't matter. These whispers are the seeds of betrayal. You open your phone before you open your purpose. You scroll, you indulge, and you crown your weakness as ruler for the day. The shadow does not scream, it whispers. It persuades you into defeat long before battle begins, and every time you obey, you tighten its grip on the throne. Imagine the throne room of your mind. If you do not sit upright, scepter in hand, your shadow will sit there in your place. It will not look monstrous at first. It will look like comfort. It will look easy. But comfort, when enthroned, becomes a tyrant. Soon the court is ruled not by your vision, but by your excuses. And the longer the usurper reigns, the weaker you become. But there is another path. You guard the throne like a ruthless sovereign. You govern your thoughts as a general governs his troops. You do not let chaos speak unchecked. When the whisper of betrayal arises, you strike it down immediately. You tell yourself, no weakness sits here, no indulgence rules me. This throne is mine. That is the only way to reign, through vigilance, through structure, through the iron hand of discipline. The throne you cannot flee demands governance. If you rule with strength, your kingdom becomes ordered, sharp, and powerful. If you abandon your duty, your shadow will sit on your throne and rule you with chains you forged yourself. There is no escape from this law. The only choice is rule or be ruled. Command your throne or lose your crown. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. Machiavelli's warning echoes across centuries, and nowhere is it more urgent than at the break of dawn. The morning is not just a transition from night to day. It is the battlefield where the war for your entire life is decided. Every sunrise brings a siege, and the enemy is waiting at the gates before you even open your eyes. The first strike belongs to you, or it belongs to the shadow. When a general takes the field, he knows momentum is everything. Hannibal crushed the Romans at Cannae, not because his army was larger, but because his strategy dictated the rhythm of the fight. In the same way, your rituals dictate the rhythm of your day. If you rise and seize the morning with precision, you dictate terms to the world. If you linger, if you hesitate, the shadow writes the script for you. The man who masters mornings gains leverage that others cannot reclaim, no matter how hard they scramble later. But the shadow is clever. It knows you are weakest in those first few minutes after waking. That is when it stages its ambush. It whispers that 5 more minutes of sleep is harmless, that checking your phone before you check your purpose is no crime. It lures you into distraction with 1,000 tiny assassins, scrolling feeds, empty emails, idle chatter. Like arrows fired from the dark, they seem small, but each one wounds your momentum. By noon, the shadow has already sacked your camp, and you find yourself fighting uphill for scraps of discipline that should have been secured at dawn. Modern life makes this ambush even more lethal. Your phone is not a tool in the morning, it is a trapdoor. With one swipe, you surrender your command to other people's agendas, other people's chaos. You hand your throne to strangers before you've even stood from your bed. This is not an accident. The shadow thrives on inertia. It feeds on your weakness to delay. Every morning you allow distraction to dictate the terms. You have already signed a silent treaty of surrender. Yet history shows us that those who win the morning rule the day. Napoleon was infamous for rising before dawn, dictating letters and setting campaigns in motion while his enemies still dreamed. The Spartans drilled at first light because they knew discipline forged in darkness carried them through every clash in daylight. Momentum seized early cannot be overturned by weaker men who start late. Victory before noon becomes a fortress around the rest of your hours. So you must treat morning as a battlefield. Do not wake passively. Rise as if stepping into a war camp. Your first actions are your opening strike. Delay and you bleed. Command and you dominate. Set rituals that ignite momentum, movement, clarity, silence, strategy. Defend against ambush. No screen, no distraction, no surrender. Claim victory before noon, and the rest of the day bends to your will. The dawn siege will return tomorrow, and the day after. It is a war without end, but the man who wins mornings becomes the man who wins years. Seize the morning, or the morning seizes you. Silence is a true friend who never betrays. Machiavelli understood what most men never will. Silence is not emptiness, it is power. Stillness is not the absence of battle, it is the sharpening of your blade before the clash. The weak run from silence because it forces them to face their own shadow. The strong weaponize it, and in doing so, they learn to rule both themselves and others. History belongs to those who mastered the art of stillness. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by chaos and war, sat each morning in silence with his meditations, turning his mind into an unshakable fortress. The samurai trained not only with the sword, but with breath and stillness, knowing that a warrior whose mind is scattered is already dead before steel is drawn. Even Machiavelli wrote that a prince should be deliberate in speech and measured in reaction, for silence conceals strategy while noise exposes weakness. These men knew what you must learn. Silence is not retreat. Silence is the throne room where strategies are born. But look around you today. Silence has become a rare resource. The modern world is an endless bombardment of noise. Notifications, headlines, voices screaming for your attention. Your mind is under siege, not by armies, but by distractions. The shadow thrives here, hidden behind the chaos. Overstimulation blinds you to its movements. You mistake the noise for urgency and miss the whispers of sabotage that rise inside your own head. Every buzz, every scroll, every flash of distraction is the enemy's arrow keeping you from hearing the truth within yourself. This is why stillness must become your weapon. In silence, the shadow can no longer hide. Its whispers surface, and instead of being ambushed, you can confront them. Stillness becomes your sword, slicing through lies and illusions. Picture yourself as a general surveying the battlefield from a high tower. In the noise of war, you see nothing but smoke. In silence, the smoke clears, and the enemy lines are revealed. That is what meditation, reflection, and intentional pauses give you. Clarity to see the battlefield of your mind. If you avoid stillness, you become a pawn in chaos. If you seize it, you become the player who commands the chessboard. So carve out silence like a fortress wall around your mind. Sit in it, breathe in it, sharpen your perception until the noise of the world cannot reach you. When others panic, you will see. When others scatter, you will strike. Stillness is not weakness. It is the ambush before the kill. Turn silence into your sword, and chaos becomes your prey. It is much safer to be feared than loved. Machiavelli's words slice to the bone, and nowhere are they more necessary than in the way you govern yourself. Power is not built on kindness toward weakness. It is built on ruthless elimination. The executioner's blade must fall, not upon your enemies first, but upon the parts of you that sabotage your reign. Mercy toward your own weakness is treason, and the cost of hesitation is your crown. History has shown us again and again what happens when leaders refuse to act decisively. Julius Caesar hesitated to cut down the conspirators he knew were whispering against him. He believed mercy would bind them. Instead, it gave them time to sharpen their daggers. His hesitation cost him his life at the foot of Pompey's statue. Mercy toward treachery was not nobility, it was suicide. You make the same mistake when you allow old habits, addictions, and toxic influences to linger in your kingdom. They are conspirators, plotting in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And if you do not eliminate them, they will eliminate you. The shadow uses distractions as assassins, not in the form of armies, but in small daily indulgences. A little too much time wasted online, a drink you didn't need, another tomorrow whispered when today demanded action. Each one feels harmless in the moment, but these are not harmless. They are infiltration. They are gates left open. They are cracks in the wall that allow the enemy to storm inside. Alexander the Great defeated empires, but was conquered by his indulgence in excess. Leaders fall not because of great defeats, but because they fail to guard against small distractions that grow into empires of decay. You cannot master your shadow while allowing your court to be filled with traitors. Imagine your life as a throne room. Every influence, your habits, your friends, your environment is seated there. Some serve you, others plot against you. The only way to remain in command is to purge the court, remove the toxic, the draining, the weak. Cut them down without apology. The ruthless king survives because he spares no loyalty to those who undermine his rule. You must act the same way. Cut the excuses, cut the distractions, cut the voices that keep you chained to weakness. This is not cruelty, it is survival. The executioner's blade is not swung out of hatred, it is swung out of necessity. Every habit you allow to live is either serving your empire or destroying it, and the shadow is patient. It waits for the moment when you show mercy to the wrong thing. That mercy will become your undoing. Do not hesitate. Do not negotiate with sabotage. The man who masters his shadow rules his kingdom. The man who spares his shadow is ruled by it. Cut weakness at the root, or be buried by its growth. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel. Machiavelli's truth cuts straight to the heart of power. Perception rules reality. The strongest commanders in history did not win only with swords and armies. They won because they wore the mask of command. A mask is not a lie, it is armor. The shadow inside you may rage, it may scream, it may seek to break you, but if you hold your mask, you hold your authority. Napoleon understood this. Even when his empire was crumbling, he stood before his soldiers with a calm, fiery presence. Caesar did the same. He knew that if his legions saw doubt in his face, they would scatter before the enemy. The mask of command is not about pretending weakness does not exist. It is about refusing to let the world see it. Leaders cannot afford to appear fractured. A general who reveals panic turns his army into prey. A king who shows despair invites rebellion, and you in your daily battles are no different. The moment you allow your inner chaos to leak into your expression, your shadow seizes control, and your enemies sense blood. In the modern world, this battlefield is everywhere. At work, in relationships, in the digital arena where every word and gesture is observed, you are judged constantly. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone lose their temper in public? They may have been right in their argument, but their loss of control made them look weak, unstable, and dangerous to follow. The shadow behind the smile destroyed their credibility. Meanwhile, those who can hold composure, those who stay calm even in chaos, command respect even from those who oppose them. This is why your mask is not false, but strategy. It is not denial of the storm within you. It is proof that you can command it. Imagine yourself walking into a throne room surrounded by enemies disguised as allies. Some whisper, some plot, some wait for your fall. If you enter with a broken mask, they will sense weakness and strike. But if you walk in armored with composure, with the mask of authority, Your very presence crushes doubt. The mask tells the room that your shadow is not in rebellion, but in chains, serving your command. The mask is your weapon because it projects dominance when the battle inside you is still being fought. This does not mean you hide forever. It means you control the terms of when and how you reveal truth. A general does not show his wounds on the battlefield. He shows them only after victory, when the throne is secure. Your shadow is a storm, but you are the emperor. The mask of command is proof that even in the storm, the crown does not shake. You cannot master life by spilling every weakness into the open. You master life by mastering the stage. Wear your mask, not as deception, but as armor. Stand tall when the shadow claws inside you. Rule your expression, and you rule the battlefield. Hold the mask, and the crown holds. Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack, and then they attack others. Machiavelli understood that ambition is a blade. It cuts both ways. Before you can conquer the world, you must first turn that blade inward. The most dangerous assassin you will ever command is your own shadow, and its first target must be the weaker versions of yourself that linger in your throne room, clinging to power they no longer deserve. Transformation is not gentle. It is not polite. It is not a smooth path where your old self steps aside willingly. Every man who has risen to power, whether Caesar, Napoleon, or Marcus Aurelius, has had to kill who he once was to become who he must be. Caesar was not born emperor. He executed the timid Roman noble within him and replaced him with a ruthless statesman who would cross the Rubicon against all warnings. Transformation requires blood. It demands sacrifice. The old self is a rival claimant to your throne, and it will not surrender without a fight. This is where the shadow becomes your executioner. Those parts of yourself you despise, your anger, your fear, your envy, your unchecked hunger, are not enemies to banish. They are weapons to be wielded. Anger can fuel your discipline. Fear can sharpen your focus. Ambition, when chained to purpose, becomes a warhorse that tramples obstacles. The assassin does not kill blindly. He kills with precision. And your shadow, if commanded, can cut down the excuses and the old identities that keep you weak. When you harness that inner killer, you no longer run from the darkness. You command it to strike for you. But picture this throne room of the mind. There sits the old self, slothful, cowardly, indulgent, still wearing pieces of the crown it no longer deserves. If you do not act, it will corrupt the court. It will whisper to the shadow. It will stir rebellion. It will weaken your reign. That self must die. The execution must be public, absolute, undeniable. In this metaphorical palace, blood must stain the floor, because only when the old self is executed before the eyes of your shadow does the kingdom understand the crown belongs to the new you. This is not fantasy. It is the law of survival. If you allow yesterday's habits to live, they will strangle tomorrow's potential. The timid man inside you will negotiate with fear and keep you chained. The indulgent man will poison you with comfort until you are unrecognizable. The weak man will surrender the kingdom of your mind to any passing invader. If you are unwilling to kill them, then prepare to be ruled by them. So turn the blade inward. Command your shadow to become the assassin of all weakness, all hesitation, all cowardice. Let the throne room echo with the silence that follows their death. From that silence, a new sovereign rises, ruthless, unshakable, untouchable. Kill who you were, or be killed by who you are. Men should be either caressed or annihilated. Machiavelli's lesson was that power does not tolerate half measures, and the same is true for the predator that lives inside you. Your shadow is a wolf. If you starve it, it will not disappear. It will grow desperate, rabid, uncontrollable. If you indulge it recklessly, it will consume you, tearing down your discipline and your kingdom. But if you feed it with precision, if you train it like a warhound, that wolf becomes your greatest weapon. There is an old parable of two wolves. A grandfather tells his grandson that inside every man there are two wolves locked in battle, one of weakness and vice, the other of strength and virtue. The boy asks, which one wins? The answer, the one you feed. That story is not a fairy tale. It is a strategy. The shadow is your wolf, and its appetite is endless. If you feed it weakness, distraction, indulgence, comfort, it grows fat on your decay. If you feed it strength, discipline, ambition, creation, it becomes a predator that hunts for you, not against you. Look at the modern world. Most people feed their wolves garbage, hours of scrolling, cheap entertainment, substances to numb the mind. These things do not tame the wolf. They poison it. They create men who are restless, anxious, addicted, and hollow. Their shadow becomes an enemy they cannot control, dragging them into depression, rage, or self-destruction. That is what happens when you feed the predator the wrong meat. A man devoured by his own shadow is no different from a king whose warhound turns on him in the middle of battle. But here lies the secret. You do not need to kill your wolf. You need to train it. Hunger is not the enemy, it is the raw force of survival. Ambition, lust, anger, drive, these can all be refined into weapons. The wolf's energy must be redirected. When you channel your hunger into art, into building, into relentless pursuit of mastery, you transform the predator within into your guardian. Picture it, the wolf no longer snapping at your heels, but tearing apart obstacles before you, no longer devouring your discipline, but defending your throne with teeth bared at weakness. Imagine entering the chessboard of life with this beast at your side, while others sit timid, their wolves starving or rabid. Yours is trained, sharpened, and loyal to your command. That is the difference between a man consumed by his shadow and a man crowned by it. The wolf does not vanish, it never will. But under your rule, it becomes an extension of your power. Do not starve your shadow. Do not indulge it blindly. Feed it with discipline. Train it with purpose. And when the moment comes, unleash it upon the world. Feed the wolf, but make it hunt for you. All courses of action are risky, so prudence is not in avoiding danger, but in calculating risk and acting decisively. Machiavelli's lesson strikes at the core of life itself. You are always on the chessboard. Whether you realize it or not, every move you make is part of a game of strategy, and your greatest rival and greatest ally is not sitting across from you. It sits within you. Your shadow is both opponent and strategist, testing your foresight, punishing your errors, and sharpening your ability to rule. Chess has always been more than a game. Kings and generals used it as training for war. Each piece symbolized the structure of command, the pawns as soldiers, the knights as cavalry, the queen as power unleashed, the king as the fragile center. On the board, victory never belonged to the reckless. It belonged to the one who could anticipate, calculate, and strike with precision. Your shadow moves the same way. It does not charge openly. It advances like a hidden grandmaster, waiting for you to underestimate it. A careless move, an indulgence, a weakness, a surrender to fear, and your shadow seizes control of the board. History is littered with kings who lost their empires because they failed to anticipate the move of their own darker nature. The modern world is no different. The chessboard is not only war, it is negotiations, politics, relationships, boardrooms. Every interaction is a duel of perception, of strategy, of concealed motives. Watch carefully in business deals. Words are never the true pieces. Silence is. In politics, it is not promises that win, but the manipulation of fear and desire. Even in your personal life, arguments and conflicts are often shadow duels. Two wolves circling, testing, waiting for one to make a weak move. If you do not see your shadow at work in these battles, you are being played by it. The man who ignores this game becomes a pawn moved by forces he doesn't even understand. But here lies the path to mastery. You can use your shadow as your chess master, that darker side of you, the part that calculates, the part that sees through masks, the part that knows what others truly want. That side can be trained to serve you. Imagine anticipating the manipulations of others, because you have already confronted your own. Imagine sitting at the board, not only knowing your strategy but knowing theirs, because the same hunger, fear and ambition you see in yourself exists in them. The shadow becomes your tutor, whispering the darker possibilities, warning you of traps, urging you toward moves that others would never dare. Life is a chessboard. The weak play impulsively, blinded by emotion, moving their pawns without thought. The strong see the whole board, the opening, the mid-game, the end-game. The man who integrates his shadow plays both sides at once. He knows the traps because he has set them against himself. He knows the sacrifices because he has killed parts of himself already. And when he moves with the inevitability of checkmate. Your shadow is both your rival and your ally. Fight it blindly, and you are a pawn. Learn from it, and you are a king. See the board, command the game. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Machiavelli's words do not apply only to armies or kingdoms. They apply to your own shadow. The beast inside you does not bow to inspiration. It bows to ritual. Ritual is the chain that binds chaos, the forge that turns raw fire into iron. Without ritual, the shadow runs wild, dragging you into distraction and weakness. With ritual, it becomes your servant, a weapon sharpened by repetition until mastery is unavoidable. History proves this truth. The Spartans drilled daily from childhood, not because they loved discipline, but because repetition forged instinct. In the heat of battle, there was no hesitation. Every move was automatic, ingrained by ritual. The samurai practiced kata thousands of times, cutting the air with invisible swords, preparing to strike with perfection when life depended on it. Roman generals built rituals into the very structure of their legions. Marching, eating, training, fighting, all synchronized to break chaos and impose order. They knew the shadow of fear and panic haunted every man in battle. Ritual was the chain that silenced it. Ritual made warriors untouchable. The same law rules today. Look at athletes who dominate their fields. Michael Jordan practiced longer and harder than anyone. Not only because of talent, but because ritual carved his will into stone. Serena Williams drilled every stroke until her body became a machine of precision. Entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk shaped their lives with relentless daily structures that bent time to their will. Thinkers and creators, from Einstein to Beethoven, lived in strict routines that allowed genius to emerge. These were not quirks of personality, they were battle plans. Modern warriors know that without ritual, talent rots and ambition dies. Your shadow wants freedom without direction. It wants to feast on impulses and excuses. Ritual is the cage that forces obedience. Imagine chaining a wild beast to a post and forcing it to run in circles. At first it rages, snarling and clawing for release, but over time it bends. It submits. It learns that the chain is law. Your habits must function the same way. Waking early, training your body, focusing your mind, repeating until the motions become part of your nature. The shadow will resist at first, but if you hold fast, it will kneel. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is a spark. It fades. Ritual is the furnace. It burns endlessly. Build rituals so unbreakable that even on your weakest days, the chain drags you forward. Build them so strong that when chaos strikes, you remain unmoved. Build them until your shadow no longer rules you but obeys without question. Iron will is not born, it is forged, and the forge is a ritual. Forge the chain, and the beast will serve. The one who becomes master of himself can never be mastered by others. Machiavelli's warning is the foundation of power. To rule the world outside, you must first become untouchable within. Untouchable does not mean you never face attack. It means no strike can wound you, no betrayal can shake you, no chaos can pull you from your throne. The emperor who casts no shadow is the one who has fused with it completely, leaving nothing for enemies to exploit. History gives us examples of such men. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, ruled Rome during plagues, wars, and betrayals, yet he remained unbroken. His meditations were not words of comfort, but weapons of command over the self. He could not control the empire's storms, but he controlled his own response, and that made him immovable. Alexander stood untouchable in battle, not only because of his armies, but because of his unshakable belief that destiny was his ally. Even Napoleon, though eventually undone by circumstance, demonstrated an aura of invincibility that made entire nations bow before a single man's will. Their power was not merely military, it was psychological. They made themselves untouchable long before their enemies laid a hand on them. In modern life, the same principle decides who rises and who falls. You've seen people crumble at a single insult, a rejection, a financial hit. Their shadow rules them. So the world does too. But the man who has faced his inner predator, who has fused with his own darkness, stands calm in storms that break lesser men. Imagine walking into a room full of rivals. They circle, they test, they provoke. If you react in anger or insecurity, you hand them weapons. But if you stand in silence, composed, unmoved, their arrows fall harmless. This is emotional detachment as armor, not numbness, but mastery. The businessman who doesn't flinch in negotiation, the soldier who does not panic in fire, the thinker who does not bend under criticism, these are the untouchable emperors of today. The final stage is fusion. You and your shadow are no longer in conflict. You are not hiding it, suppressing it, or fearing it. You have chained it, trained it, and finally crowned it. The beast kneels at your feet, and together you form a throne no enemy can topple. When shadow and self are one, you cast no weakness for others to exploit. You become whole. You become inevitable. You become a sovereign whose power radiates beyond the reach of attack. This is not a fantasy, it is the price of mastery. If you remain divided, the world will tear you apart. If you remain fragile, every slight will break you. But if you become untouchable, nothing external can dethrone you. You rule yourself, and therefore everything else. Fuse with your shadow, and no blade can cut you. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Machiavelli's words cut deeper now, at the final stage of this war. You have worn the crown, battled at dawn, silenced the noise, executed weakness, hidden behind the mask of command, unleashed the assassin within, trained the wolf, mastered the chessboard, and forged your will in fire. But all of that has been preparation for this, the final duel. The last battle is not fought with armies, nor with rivals, nor with enemies outside. The last battle is fought in the throne room of your own mind, where you face your shadow, eye to eye with the crown at stake. Picture the scene. The throne room is vast. draped in banners of conquest and blood. The walls shake with the echoes of every past failure, every regret, every weakness you've ever known. At the far end, your shadow rises, clothed in your old habits, your old excuses, your old indulgences. It wears your face, but twisted by fear, by cowardice, by every moment you surrender instead of rule. This is no simple enemy. This is you, and tonight, only one of you leaves the hall as king. The duel begins not with swords, but with whispers. The shadow tempts you to falter, to step back, to deny its existence. It tells you that suppression is safer, that you can lock it away and forget. But history proves otherwise. Carl Jung warned that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Suppression is weakness. Power lies in integration. Alexander ignored his own shadow of excess, and it destroyed his empire. Caesar ignored the envy of Rome, and it cut him down on the Senate floor. The man who pretends the shadow is gone will be devoured by it. The man who faces it, commands it, becomes untouchable. So you step forward. The duel turns violent. Your shadow lunges with every memory of failure, every moment of hesitation, every time you betrayed yourself. You parry with discipline. You strike with ritual. You counter with composure. Every lesson from this war becomes a weapon in your hand. But the fight is endless, because the shadow cannot die. Blow after blow you realize the truth. This is not an enemy to kill. This is a general to crown. The duel is not about destruction. It is about fusion. Modern visionaries prove this law. Winston Churchill's shadow was depression, what he called his black dog. He did not hide from it. He chained it, used it, turned its bite into fuel for relentless leadership during the darkest hours of World War II. Steve Jobs was driven by obsession and rage, traits that could have consumed him, but instead became the fire that reshaped entire industries. Artists, leaders, creators across history have found strength not in denying their darkness, but in mastering it. Their shadow became their blade. Their predator became their crown. And so, in the throne room, the final strike is not a killing blow. It is the moment you drop the sword and extend the crown. The shadow kneels. It does not vanish. It becomes you. The beast, the assassin, the wolf, the rival, they all merge into a single sovereign. You no longer fight your shadow, you rule with it. Together, you are complete. Together, you are a throne that cannot be toppled, because no enemy outside can wound deeper than what you have already embraced within. The hall grows silent. The banners stop trembling. The throne no longer divides. You sit crowned, whole, unstoppable. And for the first time, there is no war inside. Only command. Only sovereignty. Only the calm power of the emperor who casts no shadow. Fuse with your shadow, and the throne is yours. Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. Machiavelli was not speaking of gold or land alone. He was warning of the inheritance of the self. The greatest treasure you hold is not your reputation, not your possessions, but the command of your own shadow. Lose that, and everything else collapses. The man who ignores his shadow condemns himself to ruin. History is filled with kings, generals, and thinkers who built empires yet fell into ashes because they would not confront the darkness within. Their empires crumbled, not from the strength of enemies, but from the rot of their own unchecked impulses. You know this truth in your own life. Every failure that cut deepest was not caused by strangers, but by the parts of yourself you allowed to run wild. Ignored fear becomes paralysis. Suppressed anger becomes sabotage. Unchecked indulgence becomes chains. When you refuse to face your shadow, you do not bury it. You feed it, and sooner or later, it bursts from the dark and destroys everything you built. That is the cost of cowardice. That is the price of looking away. But there is another inheritance. The man who embraces his shadow does not fall, he rises. Modern visionaries prove this. The athlete who turns rage into fuel becomes unstoppable. The leader who channels his darkness into strategy becomes unshakable. The artist who mines pain instead of hiding it creates works that live forever. These men and women are not perfect. They are powerful because they have fused with the predator within. They carry themselves with presence. They move with will. They walk into chaos, and chaos bends around them. This is the reward of mastery. Not a life without darkness, but a life where darkness is crowned. Now the throne stands before you. The war has been fought, the shadow has been faced, and the crown is within reach. But no one can place it on your head for you. This is your moment, your duel, your inheritance. Claim it or leave it. Rule or be ruled. There is no middle ground. So remember this mantra and let it echo in your mind until it becomes your law. Master the shadow, and the throne is yours.